We operate under a modern illusion, the belief that we have to do everything. Over time, we develop a kind of learned helplessness. We let commitments, requests, and obligations dictate our schedules, stacking up until we lose the ability to choose what actually deserves our attention. Think of your daily energy as a fixed unit. When you try to fulfill every request, that energy is scattered into 20 different directions. You make a millimeter of progress on 20 different projects, completely exhausting yourself without actually completing a single meaningful task. The essentialist approach corrects this physical equation. By identifying the trivial tasks and discarding them, you are redirecting that exact same energy into a single direction. Instead of making microscopic progress everywhere, you generate massive momentum on the one thing that matters. When we lack this focus, we trap ourselves in a cycle of long-term failure. We fall victim to the sunk cost bias. Because our energy is diluted, we lose the perspective needed to quit failing projects, choosing instead to keep investing time and money simply because we've already started. The British and French governments did exactly this with the Concorde jet. It was clear early on that the supersonic passenger plane was a financial failure. But rather than cut their losses, they poured money into it for 4 decades, solely because of the massive capital they had already sunk into its development. Unchecked obligations and sunk costs strip away your agency. To stop other people and bad habits from dictating your life, you have to treat your power of choice as a strategic asset. If you don't choose where your energy goes, someone else will. Reclaiming that agency requires a new operating philosophy. Less, but better. The objective here is not to learn how to get more things done in your day. The objective is to get the right things done. To identify what the right things are, you have to apply a rigorous filter to your life. Take any task, project, or commitment and score its relevance out of 100. If it scores an 89 or below, treat it as a 0 and discard it. If it isn't a clear, definitive yes, it is a clear no. Southwest Airlines built a highly profitable business by applying this exact filter. They looked at the airline industry and scored the relevance of every feature. First-class seating, assigned rows, and hot meals didn't meet their threshold for getting a passenger from point A to point B, so they stripped them away entirely, executing a few essential things exceptionally well. But here is the catch. To consistently score your priorities and see the big picture, you need something modern culture actively discourages: blank space. Constant technological stimulation has made boredom a rarity, but quiet, unstructured time is a structural requirement for your brain to process ideas. Historic geniuses understood this necessity. Albert Einstein and Isaac Newton routinely isolated themselves to escape the noise of daily details. That intentional distance from their work is exactly what allowed them to connect disparate concepts and formulate groundbreaking theories. Play and sleep serve the exact same biological function. They are not luxuries or signs of laziness. Sleep physiologically enhances your brain's ability to synthesize information, while skipping it induces a level of cognitive impairment equal to being legally drunk. Ruthlessly cutting the trivial and strictly protecting your mental downtime are the baseline conditions for productivity. Without them, you cannot identify your highest point of contribution. Once you know what is essential, the challenge shifts to execution. The standard impulse when we hit a roadblock is to push harder, but the most effective way to speed up a process isn't to exert more effort. It's to identify and remove the obstacles slowing you down. To see how this works in practice, look at a hiking Boy Scout troop. In a single-file line, the entire group can only move as fast as the slowest scout. If the troop wants to reach their camp before sundown, screaming at the slowest kid to march faster is useless. Instead, you redistribute the weight. You take the heavy camping gear off the slowest scout and hand it to the fastest kids at the front of the line. You eliminate the bottleneck, and the entire group accelerates. In your personal workflow, friction often presents itself as a lack of time. Things inevitably go wrong, creating massive delays. The essentialist approach removes this bottleneck by proactively adding a 50. You have to say no. You have to reject perfectly good, perfectly reasonable opportunities simply because they do not serve your primary objective. We are socially conditioned to view refusal as an insult. The tool to overcome this is to separate the decision from the relationship. You can firmly decline a colleague's request for your time while still communicating respect for them as a person. It helps to weigh the timelines of the two choices. Setting a boundary creates a few minutes of social discomfort. Agreeing to do a task you don't have time for creates weeks of quiet resentment. Essentialism is an ongoing identity. It requires the daily discipline to continually edit your life, questioning every commitment to ensure you are taking giant strides in a single direction rather than tiny steps in 20. The habit starts with a single decision. Look around your immediate physical space right now. Find one item you don't actually need and throw it out. Reclaim your space, and you begin to reclaim your choice.